Today, I want to talk about youth empowerment. More specifically, I want to talk about the power of youth volunteerism. But I want today's talk to be a little bit different, from a different perspective on youth empowerment. Because most people come up here and they're adults and they're talking about youth empowerment. And they're talking about the different steps that youth need to take in order to succeed. And that's great. But today I want to speak from a youth perspective, from one youth to another youth, about how you guys can truly change the world. So, according to a volunteer database, only about 9% of American youth volunteers participate in voluntary community service during their high school, middle school through high school careers. That's an incredibly small percentage, and it's a little bit scary considering the amount of success and what youth can accomplish through community service. So today, I'm going to share 3 stories with you guys. I'm going to share the story of the charity that I started when I was 15 years old, called Brothers Against Poverty. And then I'm going to share 2 stories, 2 concrete examples of families and lives that are being impacted through this charity and through this work. So when I was 15 years old, I traveled to Vicente Guerrero, Mexico, and served in an orphanage for a couple of weeks. And what I saw there completely changed my life. Changed my life forever. Completely changed my perspective and my outlook on the world. I had never ventured out of the country before, and I had never seen poverty firsthand. One of the days, we went out into this rural area, and I looked to my right and I looked to my left, and there were these huge man-made just ditches just all over the place. These just almost potholes. And there were children and there were families living in these ditches with no food, no water, no shelter, just the clothes on their back and each other. That was all that they had. And that completely blew me away. I didn't know how to handle that at 15 years old. I went back to camp that evening, and I went off by myself, just kind of into this little field, and I was just sobbing. I was crying because I didn't know how to process this. I'd never seen people living in situations like this, in these kind of conditions. I stayed out in that field for a few hours, and that evening I decided that I was going to try to make a change. I was going to try to make a positive impact on this. And that was the evening that I decided to start a charity. So when I got back to America, when I got back to Bellingham from that trip, I started researching what I would need to do to start a charity. The different processes that I would need to take, the different licenses that I would have to get, the business license, 501c3. I started learning about the IRS and the 501c3 status that I would have to get. And I started putting together a plan. And in a couple of months, we had a plan. I had a plan of how I wanted to start this charity. So in December of 2011, I created Brothers Against Poverty. And I asked 4 other young men to join me on this project: David Anderson, Tyler Ho, Nash Bruner, and Mike Lulate. And together, we started calling ourselves the Brothers Against Poverty. You know, it was midnight, and we were sitting in the basement eating pizza and working on an IRS form, and we just started calling ourselves the Brothers Against Poverty because we had this vision and we had this passion for serving these people in need. So as the months went on, we started to identify what we wanted to do. We started to create the core statements of what we wanted Brothers Against Poverty to stand for. And we decided that we wanted it to be about the elimination of poverty, the improvement of education around the world, and the pursuit of dreams, and giving people access to the resources they need to pursue their dreams. And for the first few months, it was a difficult process. Once we had established ourselves as a 501c3 charity and we had gotten all the necessary paperwork filed, we started going out and trying to find different charities to partner ourselves with, to kind of band together and go toward a common mission. And for the first few meetings that we had, we didn't get accepted. But that was okay because we had this passion and we had this vision to succeed. And we knew that eventually we were gonna get there. So about 6 months into the charity's founding, we got our first partnership with Foundation for His Ministry and King's Castle International in Central America. And we began to kind of form our programs in these countries. So for the next 2 summers, I spent the next 2 summers living and serving in Central America. through Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico, and working to kind of establish and create these programs. So what we would do is we would go into a community, and it was an all youth team. It was myself and then other youth volunteers from all over Central America, and then also from America as well. And we would go into these rural areas, and we would try to identify these kids that were ambitious and that were looking to succeed, but they just didn't have the resources and didn't have the experience to get into a situation where they were going to be able to succeed. And we started to create these different education programs with our different partners. There's one of our programs that's in Nicaragua, and that's one of our programs right there that we're working with. And I'm very proud to say that today Brothers Against Poverty is working in 5 countries, and through these different programs we have helped reach over 29,000 children and families in need, and have helped over 7,000 kids get established in these different programs that are truly helping them to succeed. Thank you. And I'm also very excited because Brothers Against Poverty, it started with just 5 guys just in a basement, just with this vision to succeed. And we were 15, 16 years old. But because we had this passion for service, we were able to grow this and make it and turn this into this international mission. And this year, we're going to be expanding into 8 countries, and my goal is to have us working in 20 countries by the end of when I'm done with college, and pass this on to the youth of the future. So next, I want to share a couple stories, some concrete examples of people that have been directly impacted by what we've been doing. So first, I want to tell the story of Dan and Mary Van Dyken. Dan and Mary Van Dyken were a hardworking, working-class American family, the kind of family that makes this country the best country in the world. And they were doing all right until Dan had a stroke, and he started to suffer from Crohn's disease, and suffered multiple strokes. He suffered more strokes, and the family began to descend into poverty as the medical bills just completely destroyed the family's financial situation. They were forced to move into a substandard housing situation. Right here in Bellingham. This was a real-life poverty situation here in Bellingham. So Brothers Against Poverty, we identified this family in, I think it was in late 2012. Tyler Ho, one of our executives, had been talking about, it was great that we were working internationally, that we were working in Central America to have these different programs, but he said that it was also important that we were working here locally. Because while it's true that America is by no means a third world country like a lot of the countries in Central America, there's still families that are struggling with poverty here in America. And the Van Dykens, they were one of those families. So we identified Habitat for Humanity as a charity that had very similar ideals to what Brothers Against Poverty stood for. And so we got dressed up in our suits, and we headed out to Habitat for Humanity, to the office, and we sat down with the executive director and kind of pitched ourselves as a charity that would raise all the funds, we would provide the volunteers, and we would work to build a home for these families through the Youth United project that Habitat for Humanity works with. And in a very short amount of time, we had raised over $90,000 for this family to build the home. And this is one of the points that I want to make today about youth volunteerism. What we found is that when we went out into the community and we kind of pitched ourselves as a youth, when we pitched ourselves as a youth movement, it was amazing to see the community response from the adults. Because the adults were able to see that we were just 15, 16 years old, and yet we had this passion for service, and they were really willing to buy into that and buy into this project that we were working with the Van Dykens. So we raised all the money, and we had over 200 volunteers here in Bellingham at Squalicum High School, and we started to build the home. And we're proud to say that we're about a third of the way done with the home, and it's going to be finished by the end of the summer. So it's fantastic that this family is going to be able to move into a great home. So there's one example of something that Brothers Against Poverty is doing here in Bellingham. And then also, I want to talk a little bit about international success and the way that we're kind of going about carrying out these different education programs and projects that we're doing in Central America. So this is Collins. Collins is a young boy living in Mexico, and he was from a tough home. He was orphaned as a child, and was living at the Foundation for His Ministry orphanage. And we found him when I went down to Central America again. We started to plug him into one of the different education programs that we were working with in Mexico. And he is someone that is now going through the programs and being mentored by youth. So what I'm trying to get across is that to all the different youth out there that are thinking about starting something like this, or that have an idea, have a passion for service, I'm here to say that you can do it. That you can create something, and you can have that passion for service when you are at an incredibly young age, and you can have an enormous amount of success. I never in my wildest dreams believed that Brothers Against Poverty was going to turn into a charity that is working in 5 different countries, soon to be 8 different countries, and reaching thousands of different people through these different education programs and poverty outreach programs. I just wanted to help a few people. That's honestly all I wanted to do. So if you're out there watching this, or here today, seeing this, I want you to realize that you can truly change the world if all you need is a passion for service. You don't need you don't need smarts, you don't need looks, you don't need connections. All you need is a passion to serve. Let's make that 9%, let's get that up to 100%. Because the more youth that get involved with this, the more the older generation see that they want to support this as well. Because if younger people are doing this, why can't we do this? So the more youth that are getting involved in this, the better world that we're going to create. Thank you so much, TEDx.